steps of my grandfather. We want to open up and welcome you today in a good way. And I have my nephews, Mi Papa Papa Samoa and Tsialton here bringing their medicine to you. Tśētsawanexw. Thank you so much. Thank you for your medicine. Thank you for opening us up in a good way. In this space is small, but with those good feelings, it makes it feel like it's a big house. And hoping that everybody that's online and can see and view this, let those feelings approach you and touch you in a good way. Back to you, Erwin.
Thank you, Shar, and thanks to Rob and Nick for sharing a bit of the song and helping create this vessel, this welcoming vessel. And yeah, with the beautiful, strong sounds of the drum in the nature house, the echo is a strong echo. So it's not great for these little tiny microphones. So thanks everybody for hearing and the spirit of the song and the spirit of the drum transcending these digital limitations. I'd like to, we've got some very, very special guests today, and I'm just really thrilled that so many of you have joined us today. And in particular, we have special guests representing different jurisdictions from across the region, in particular the North Shore. And I want to thank all of you for joining. I want to let folks know a bit of the program. We have, I'll be coming back to Charlene Alec, who will talk about the exhibition coming together with Karen Dearlove, the curator who worked with Char to build the show. So that'll be in a few minutes after we hear from some dignitaries. I also understand that Ta'a, Amy George, daughter of Chief Dan George, will be here in a few minutes as well. And looking forward to talking to her about the Lament for Confederation, which was an important speech in 1971. And we'll also give you a bit of a teaser of some of the programming that we're doing this summer. And a teaser to the teaser is we're celebrating Chief Dan George's birthday on July the 24th. And with Dr. Bonnie Henry's approval, we'll be inviting you in person. So we'll be shirking off these Zoom limitations, and hopefully we'll be able to be out in the sunshine, under the trees, in the fresh air, July the 24th for Chief Dan George's birthday. And I'll give you information about that later in the program. But for now, I would like to ask Chief Leah George from the Tsleil-Waututh, and I believe Councillor Justin George may also be on the phone, but there you are, Chief Leah. Thank you so much for being with us. Really grateful to be able to do this work in your territory, and thank you for joining us today.
Greetings to our honored guests and my dear ones. I have good feelings in my heart to see all of you today. Really uplifted our family, our people, to hear the drums and to hear our language being spoken down at the Wild Bird Trust. Really happy to join you today on such an auspicious occasion, celebrating our ancestor, our late Chief Dan George, whom we all love and respect. Happy to see his grandchildren and great-grandchildren joining the celebration. I know that Justin is
I'm here.
Oh, great. And Erwin, if you don't mind, I'd like to have, as one of the grandchildren, Justin, to say a few words. Quick name.
Hi.
He has been having trouble with the the connections.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and Justin is one of the grandchildren, so it's a real honor for us to share this time both with you, Chief George, but also with members of council and everybody else here who's joined us today. That's the challenge of Zoom. We're holding space for community, and we're holding space to do this important work. And yeah, sometimes I guess we have to be patient with the technology. And I guess you with council and there's several people from different municipal councils here as well that struggle to do your good work while having Zoom limitations as well.
I'd also like to say that Deanna George is on the line as well, and watching with her is her husband, Bill, and her son, who are grandsons, who are also grandchildren and great-grandchildren of late Chief Dan. So I'd like to acknowledge their presence as well. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll just see if Justin is able to jump back on.
Hey, CM and CIA. Thanking you, Chief Leah, our CM. Really thanking all the organizers, our direct family that's been involved, and the funders, my nephews for the beautiful medicine and the songs. You know, our grandpa, Tśētsawanexw Stalaston, I'm sure is smiling down today. And you know, the leader, the vision, the strength and humility in his right.
Well, it looks like we've just lost Justin again, but certainly welcome him back. And you know, some of his family members will also be speaking in the next hour with us as well. So. And thanks, Leah, for mentioning that Deanna is also here.
I just want to say that Justin is just going to leave his apologies. He keeps getting kicked out, so he really wanted you to know how much he appreciated this day and sends love to all of our families. Tśētsawanexw, thanking all of you.
Thank you so much. So we'll move forward, and I'll have some more remarks in a few minutes. But if we can hear from Bowen Ma and Susie Chant. If Bowen, are you in the room?
I'm here. Hello. Hello, everyone. So my name is Bowen Ma. I have had the honor of serving as a local member of the BC legislature on these lands since 2017. And of course, by these lands, I mean that I'm coming to you live here from the territories of the Musqueam, the Squamish, and the Tsleil-Waututh peoples. So good to see Chief Leah George Wilson here, and grateful for the opportunity to come together in celebration of the life and legacy of Chief Dan George and all of his relations. Chief Dan George, an artist, an actor, and advocate for the rights of Indigenous people. It's especially meaningful right now in this time of awakening for so many people who call themselves Canadians. Awakening to the truth of Canada's treatment of Indigenous peoples, awakening to the depth of devastation caused by the residential school system, and a rapidly growing understanding of the role that non-Indigenous people must play and the actions that we must take to right wrongs, not only of the past, but of those that continue on today. There is a future out there where this reckoning with the truth will have led to true reconciliation, but it will not be an easy or simple journey. So let us go forward together with courage on this. And thank you so much for your kind attention and the opportunity to say a few words. Awesome.
Thank you, Bowen. And Susie, or is Susie Chant, MLA for?
I am indeed here. Thank you ever so much for the honor of being able to join you today into this event. I truly feel a great pride in being able to be here with you. I am very fortunate. I actually met Chief Dan George when I was probably 6. My father and he were friends, and I have met him very long time ago. And been very fortunate in that. My father always enjoyed his company and always found him to be a very wise and thoughtful man, but he had a wicked sense of humor, and as did my father, so they got along very, very well. Again, I thank you for the opportunity to be here. I too, I'm speaking to you from the lands of the Musqueam, Tsleil-Waututh, and Squamish, and I appreciate the opportunity to be able to live and work here. So I look forward to enjoying the rest of this gathering and this time together. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Susie. And I see our MP, North Vancouver Burnaby North is Terry Beach. Are you Terry Beach? Are you there?
I'm here. Yes.
Sure.
Hi,
Okay.
everyone. Nice to see you.
You can jump on. There you are.
Hello, everyone. I'm joining you from my office, which of course is on the traditional territory of the Tsleil-Waututh Musqueam and Squamish people, and it's a great pleasure to be here. I had the wonderful opportunity to see the exhibition last week and to go through it all, and to plant a tree actually at the location at the same time, which was really. Oh, you have pictures. Yeah, there. I'm there with Jonathan Wilkinson, my neighbor in North Vancouver. What a wonderful exhibit this is. Of course, I never had the opportunity to meet Chief Dan George because he passed away in the same year that I was born. But of course, had lots of opportunities to interact with his son before he passed, and now his grandson. I have to say that this exhibit at this time is so appreciated, and I really hope that not just people from Burnaby and North Vancouver, but people from the entire region are going to take the time to come and see it, learn about Chief Dan George and his background. There's so much of him that lives in our community. His acting role and the prominence that the video and film industry plays in our community, his environmental passion, and his passion for love and humanity is just striking, and it really does come out in the exhibit. I remember when I was first running for office, it was in the middle of 2015, and his son Leonard contacted me to say, "Okay, Terry, you know, what are you bringing to the table?" And we had a great opportunity to talk about reconciliation, and in the following election, I was challenged by the Tsleil-Waututh councillors in a meeting that we had to talk about, you know, how are we walking on that path of reconciliation, and what are we doing to make sure that we're also taking care of the truth aspects. And I've really made it a passion project to make sure that we're pushing forward on that. I'm now publishing and releasing a quarterly reconciliation report that talks about what we're doing, not just locally in the community, but nationally. I'm disappointed that you know, we put $18 billion in the federal budget this year, and some of the feedback I got immediately was, why are we investing so much in Indigenous reconciliation, so much in Indigenous nations? And it's up to all of us really to push back on that, and to convince our communities that more needs to be done faster, and that there is a tremendous opportunity for Canada and the people of Canada, and for all Indigenous people, to ensure that the next 150 years corrects a lot of the mistakes in the past. And I think this discovery in Kamloops, which has hit my family so hard, hit our community so hard. I talked to so many individuals in the last number of weeks, whether it be through the Indigenous Tourism Association, our local community members, or just from people contacting the office who were distraught with this discovery. I then went back to my national caucus, and to hear stories of a similar impact being felt in the Northwest Territories, and Newfoundland, and Prince Edward Island, and Quebec, and Ontario, right across the country. I really do hope that there's an opportunity here to really advance faster and more meaningfully than we have, and to accelerate this healing exercise. And I think that this particular exhibit and this particular man is an unbelievable capture of just the contribution of Indigenous people to Canada. What a heart, what a career, and what a passionate voice for the environment, and for community, and for love. And being able to be here and be a part of this, and to be able to see the presentations today, I'm just very excited and honored to be invited. So thank you for having me.
Okay, thank you very much. And I think we'll be following up to hold you and others to account for those important words. And appreciate that, Terry. I want to now invite our local mayors, Mary Ann Booth from the District of West Vancouver. Thank you for joining us, Mary Ann. Mayor Angela.
Yes, thank you
Mayor.
very much. Thank you for the invitation from the Wild Bird Trust of British Columbia. And thank you to the Tsleil-Waututh Nation and Chief Dan George for allowing us to gather on the traditional, ancestral, and unceded territories of, I come to you from the territories of Squamish, Musqueam, and Tsleil-Waututh Nations. I am bringing greetings on behalf of my council, and so interesting to see the exhibit. I'm looking forward to visiting in person. Luckily, we do have the technology to share the dance, the song, the life of Chief Dan George. Of course, I don't think there's a Canadian alive that doesn't know who Chief Dan George is as an actor, but I am particularly interested in listening and learning about his other many contributions that he made globally, nationally, and locally. So I do want to also express my condolences to the nation's all Indigenous people around the discovery at the former Kamloops Indian Residential School. And just to let you know that we are grieving. We are grieving with you for the children, the innocent children who have been taken, harmed, and killed, and their families who have suffered unimaginable loss. I am chair of the Metro Indigenous Relations Committee, and I have personally and professionally chosen and committed myself to reconciliation and the path towards that, and will continue along in that journey with the nations and doing absolutely everything in my power to fulfill the calls to action and to ensure that my residents, my constituents acknowledge the truth and start the healing process. So super just pleased to be here, and again, Hoichka Hoisiam, thank you for this great opportunity.
Thank you, Mary Ann Booth from West Vancouver. Appreciate your words. And we have two other mayors, Acting Mayor Angela Gerard from the City of North Vancouver, and then District of North Vancouver. Thank you. Thanks for joining.
Thanks very much. I'm Councillor Gerard from the City of North Vancouver, and it is my pleasure to bring you greetings here today from Mayor Buchanan and from our City Council. I am grateful to be speaking to you from your lands, the unceded Coast Salish territories and the traditional and ancestral territories of the Squamish and Tsleil-Waututh Nations. And I thank you for sharing those lands with us. I'd also like to take this opportunity to thank the Wild Bird Trust for inviting our City Council to participate in this event and for facilitating a way for all of us to connect that is COVID safe. This exhibit could not be opened at a better time. Chief Dan George often spoke of love, of healing, and of nature. As an advocate for Indigenous people and of truth and reconciliation, the life and legacy of Chief Dan George offers us at this moment a time to reflect on the First Nations rights movement after a very somber 2 weeks of reckoning with the truth revealed of Canada's residential school system. On behalf of Mayor Buchanan and our City Council, thank you to the Tsleil-Waututh Nation, the Wild Bird Trust of BC, and the family of Chief Dan George for sharing his memory, art, and his activism with all of us. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Councillor Gerard. I'm not sure if Mayor Little is on. He might have just got bumped off of the Zoom. I do know Councillor Curran is with us. Councillor Curran, are you able to pass on message from the District of North Vancouver?
Hi, thank you for that. Definitely wasn't expecting this, but grateful to be here. quite touched by what's been said so far, and grateful as well to be here on the lands of the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh people. I was reflecting on the beautiful words that Chief Dan George has offered us. And as someone who is learning and unlearning about colonialism and how much hope there are in his words, I think Councillor Gerard spoke of love, and what are we doing if not for love? And we can't live without nature. So that connection is so critical. And I really appreciate that connection that we all need to learn and understand in a new way. My heart is also with every Indigenous person who still, of course, is grieving. And I have a responsibility, and we all have a responsibility to do better, to build this just and beautiful future that we know is possible. So with gratitude, I really am very grateful for this opportunity, and thank you again. Was caught off guard, but okay. Thanks, Elle.
If all those decisions at council were that easy, suddenly Zoom kicks someone out of the meeting and then the vote can happen.
Yeah, the last thing I'll say is when we declared the District of North Vancouver a climate emergency, Charlene had gifted me a book of poems from Chief Dan George, and I read a poem, and I feel like that art and those words and that connection to nature was just something that really connected with people in a different way, and there couldn't be. So I'm so excited I love buying all my plants from there, and I can't wait to walk through those beautiful that beautiful exhibit. So
thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for the sincerity in your words. And I think Megan was just talking about the native plant nursery that we operate at Maplewood Flats. And of course, we have a native plant nursery because of our understanding that native plants, wild birds, Tsleil-Waututh culture, those are all one, right? It's only Western science that thinks that somehow there's a glass wall around a wild bird sanctuary, and that the Tsleil-Waututh, somehow it's appropriate to be excluded from that jurisdiction. And that's a mistake that our organization is working to repair. And it's a mistake that we made a few decades ago when we petitioned to have the site not industrialized for the second time, but in fact we actually removed the land from the Tsleil-Waututh. And so that's something that we're really mindful of. Our hearts are heavy about that because we want to protect wild birds. We want to ensure that not the entire harbor of Vancouver is industrialized. So it's important. It's an important place for nature, but it's also an important place to do reconciliation and redress. And so it's not a coincidence that we've asked the North Vancouver Museum for this exhibition, and we asked the George family to do this work with us. And it's also, I just want to let folks know, I appreciate this is not an overtly political event, and we should all gather again to do an overtly political event about making reconciliation meaningful. But I do want to let folks know that we are really thrilled that the Tsleil-Waututh are entering into a relationship agreement with us, and we'll be discussing that over the next few months about what that means. And that is a step towards a new relationship. And I think that returning lands to Tsleil-Waututh is another part of that journey. Because it was only 1% of the history of the Maplewood Flats Conservation Area that has not been stewarded by the Tsleil-Waututh. So 99% of the history of the Maplewood Flats has been stewarded by Tsleil-Waututh beautifully. And so we're trying to keep that in perspective and be a bit more humble in terms of the way we approach conservation and restoration. So thanks to our dignitaries for sharing those words and for being here. And I want to now, I think Katie Coolidge is in the house as well. And thank you, Katie, for your work. We're going to be showing a video. You're a member of the Tsleil-Waututh Nation. And it's interesting, we didn't know COVID was going to be happening, but you created a beautiful video featuring the performance group that Chief Dan George created, the Children of Takaya. And so you made this video not knowing that COVID would happen, but here we can benefit from a performance from the children of Takaya virtually. And let's watch that now. Do you want to give a little introduction, Katie? I see you're on the Zoom. You made this, I think, was it 2016 or 2017?
Yeah, I made this in 2016. Just where, I can't remember where we filmed it.
At the Video In, Video Out Studios in
That's what
Vancouver.
it's called.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was really nice to be able to make this film. It was with the Festival of Recorded Movement, so kind of just blending art and movement, and yeah, just
Beautiful.
nice video of the Tsleil dance.
So I really appreciate it for that, the way that you edited it and brought all this, like you said, it was made for a festival about movement, and it really does show us the movement of the dancers. So thank you for your work, and we'll watch that video now.
He's singing a song. So when you see the dance tonight, you'll see in the dancers, the movements, they'll be spinning, trying to confuse you so you don't know which hand the unmarked poem is in. They'll be pointing and they'll holler and stuff, and it's all to throw you off, distract you. So we give you the spirit of Tsleil.
Wow. Beautiful work. Children of Takaya, and saw a little cameo of Leonard George also in that video. Thank you very much, Katie, for that video. I want to invite Wesley Wenhart, Director of MONOVA. We're calling it MONOVA. We used to call it the Museum of North Van, or Presentation House, different things over the years. Wesley, thank you for the work MONOVA has done. And I know this is also an exciting time for yourselves with your new development. So maybe you can just say some remarks and let us know about this fantastic work that MONOVA is doing.
Thank you very much, Erwin. I'd like to bring you greetings from Manova, the new museum in North Vancouver. We're very pleased to be collaborating with WBT as a valued community partner here at the Maplewood Mudflats. We applaud the meaningful connections that are purposely being developed between the Maplewood Mudflats and the Tsleil-Waututh community over the past years. This echoes the reconciliation work that we have been undertaking with our Manova Indigenous Voices Advisory Committee under the leadership of Carleen Thomas, Chief Dan George, Latash Maurice Nahani, Michelle George, and other communities from both nations. One of the most well-received and developed exhibits has been Chief Dan George, actor and activist, a traveling exhibit on loan from the Museum of North Vancouver, contributed to by former curator Karen Dearlove. Visitors will be able to enjoy it and appreciate it here with you over the summer months. It's been wildly successful at other BC museums and cultural centers, and we're delighted that this moving tribute has come back home to this beautiful setting over the summer. As you know, we're a shared partner of the City and District of North Vancouver. We operate both the new museum we're opening in 2021 and the Archives of North Vancouver located in Lynn Valley. Sharing stories is the heart of what we do, and we're really excited to welcome you to our new museum opening in the fall of 2021. Hachka, Wasim, thank you very much, and all the best with the run of the exhibit. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Wesley, and really appreciate those words. And it's also great to know we have these partnerships. I know in a previous life, I was the executive director of the North Vancouver Arts Council, and I think 30 years ago or so. So I'm thinking about these local institutions and the civil society role that we have. I know our friends from the North Vancouver Public Library are on here as well. The North Vancouver Arts Council, the museum, Wild Bird Trust. I think we have an important role to play, and I think your words are a testament to that. And I think we can just keep doing the work. Thanks, Wes, for sharing this beautiful work with us. And I'll give some information about the programs that we're going to do in a few minutes, but we've got some great public programs to go along with the exhibition. So I want to invite the two people who helped create the pieces and kind of figure out what lands in the gallery and what were important pieces to show, reflecting this icon, this huge icon in our lives, Chief Dan George. And if Charlene Alec and Karen Dearlove can join me. I'd love to ask some questions about the process and how all this came to be.
Absolutely. I'm really excited to talk about it.
Okay, is Charlene?
Here we are.
Super, awesome, thank you. Well, congratulations on the work. Karen, maybe, and Char, maybe if you can just start at the very beginning, who came up with the idea and just this idea that, an icon amongst us. Growing up in North Vancouver, I remember my father was the parks manager for the District of North Vancouver, so I certainly know the land of North Vancouver. And Chief Dan George was from the land, but he was also a major cultural figure. And creating an exhibition, and I meant that we grew up with Chief Dan George, knowing about him as someone who's bigger than life. And it seems a very daunting task to sort of figure out, how do you bring this icon into a touring exhibition? So Char and Karen, if you could just start us off with that.
Yeah, I can start off a little bit. From the standpoint of the museum, we were really looking at doing an exhibit as part of the Canada 150 in 2017, but we really wanted to find a way to effectively flip that on its head. And so our inspiration for this exhibit was Chief Dan George's Lament for Confederation, which is a speech that he gave at the City of Vancouver's centennial celebrations in 1967. And it really was an inspirational moment. It really was a speech that challenged what it meant, what Canada meant, whether or not it was something to be celebrated, how it had a very different meaning to Chief Dan George and to Indigenous people throughout Canada. And that was the inspiration for the exhibit initially. And I was really fortunate to have been able to work so closely with Charlene, Alec, and so many members of Chief Dan George's family and the Tsleil-Waututh Nation. I was fortunate to be able to speak with 3 of his children, and at least 5 of his grandchildren and several of his great-grandchildren. And for me as a curator, I really wanted to make sure that the Chief Dan George that we presented in this exhibit was the Chief Dan George that was a father and a grandfather and a great-grandfather, was an inspiration to his community, as well as that larger than life figure that touched so many other people's lives, whether it was through his work in film and television, through his writings, through his activism, and just the relationships that he built. The Truth and Reconciliation Report's call to actions really specify that museums have an important role to play. And I think that this exhibit was part of what we could do. I take the term reconciliation literally as bringing people together. And I think that for me, what I got out of the work I did about Chief Dan George was that he tried to bring people together. That was one of his things that he did his entire life. He kind of lived reconciliation, and that was part of what we were trying to bring to life. So I'm just overjoyed that this exhibit has now come back to the Tsleil-Waututh territory, that at this critical time, it could bring more reconciliation and understanding. And I just want to thank again Charlene for all the help that she provided and all the connections that I was able to make with the George family and the Tsleil-Waututh Nation.
Thank you, Karen. That's beautiful recollection. If I could just backpedal and give a little bit of how I came on board with the North Bend Museum was my late uncle Leonard. Was following those footsteps of wanting to share Tsleil-Waututh's story of our people here in this territory with our neighbors, and wanting to implement some sort of exhibit. And it was an easy follow to look at who we would put in as an exhibit. And his own dad and my grandfather was a good example of sharing and that neighboring work that he did through his activism and his acting, and as well as working on the land. He was a longshoreman for years, and he would pull the logs out by hand with his horse. And having so much history and work and those stories that come through our songs and our dances have rich teachings with how to be and how we were, and how life once was what I think is paradise in the inlet and on the North Shore, in the mountains and whatnot. Was an easy task to go ahead and reach out to my cousins. One of my cousins that lent quite a few of his photos for the exhibit is now passed, and it was really moving to see it here at home, really close at the Wild Bird Trust here. We've had family gatherings here, family dinners here, birthday parties here, so it's like an extension of our home. And I think that's what, above all, my aunts and uncles and grandpa and grandma would have really liked to share those things, especially in this time where, everything is crumbling down with climate change and with our governance tables, with this new finding of the 215 little souls that were found. And it's really changing the landscape of how we view our country and how we view our neighborhoods, how we view our communities and those governing bodies. How are we going to make amends? And it's that poignant time and that axis where we can do something, and it was really getting that grab that once again is bringing us all together.
The exhibition obviously covers various parts of his life and his contributions to society, both locally but also across the world. And he lived in a time, as you pointed out, Karen, you talked about the Lament for Confederation in 1971, and we're going to watch that in a minute. And I'm thrilled to know that Ta'a Amy George will be here with us and to talk about the Lament as well. But the exhibition also really, for me, remarkably, is, as we've heard from Wesley and others, a brilliant exhibition for this moment in time. And I say that with extraordinary grief, right? Because the Lament was done 50 years ago. And the fact that it's so poignant today is as much a comment about Chief Dan George's vision, but also about the failure of Canada and the failure of settler society to make change, because what he's proposing is as relevant today as it was 50 years ago. And that's, that's of course very, very shameful for our settler communities. So the question in that is how did you represent and please share the role of this kind of history, because the exhibition is not just about Chief Dan George, but it talks about this important moment in Canadian history in the 1950s, the 1960s, the 1970s, and how and why was that important to put into the exhibition?
For me, it was really important to provide that context, that there is a history of Indigenous activism in Canada and this fight for rights. It wasn't just a moment. It's not, and it's also not done. So I think that was something that I really wanted to provide, that context, to lay bare just how frequently the Canadian government and the authorities really try to prohibit Indigenous culture and really try to maintain the limitations of the Indian Act and what can only be described as a very patriarchal and patronizing and just that whole power of colonialism that the Indian Act represents. And to be able to tell people that Indigenous people were and still are in many cases considered wards of the state, that they don't have the same rights as other Canadians, and that every right that they have, they fought for. And that this is an important story to recognize, important for us to recognize that the residential school system is part of that story, but so were the prohibitions against potlatch, against Indigenous song and dance, and being able to represent themselves with lawyers to fight for their rights. These were all parts of the story, and it's not done. I think that's the other part that we're trying to, that timeline really demonstrates, is that this isn't finished yet, that we still have a long way to go. But it's also to pay homage to so many people that did fight, and all these instances where Indigenous rights and activism became more of a mainstream story in Canada. And I think that's what the timeline and the portraits of some of the Indigenous leaders in this exhibit, along with Chief Dan George, is really supposed to represent. And I think that sense of being able to contextualize and educate and lay bare just what colonialism and the powers of colonialism have done.
think the exhibit came in a time as well, putting it together and having the timeline of the history of our people across Canada came in a time of reconciliation when Canada had declared that. So we took, what that word meant to us. Well, at first we need to find out the truths, find out the truth of treatment, find out the truth of our actual history and what we can do with that, and the restoration of our people, regaining our culture and our language, which was once stripped from us. Very much like what was in the Lament, you've taken away our land, our culture, our language, our children. And that, I think that's what the museum strives to do, and did a really good job in teaching, this traveling exhibit, teaching everyone, not just for the Native community, Indigenous peoples, but as well as the non-Native and teachers and people that work in the school system of a true history, because it's not being taught. So I think this exhibit just has a little peephole of our history and treatment of the things that we strived to do to make it restored back to, we know we can't get back down to the baseline of how we once were, but this is definitely a work in progress. And it invites the other side to come in and join us in this restoration work. Then we can move on to reconciliation.
Right, good words, Charlene. And the exhibition toured, and as Wes said, it's an important exhibition for the Museum of North Vancouver. But maybe just let us know about where it toured to, its impact, and we're thrilled that it's come home. And maybe Char, you can talk about that. But also, really, I think we're really curious what happened and where did it go, and if you can share some feedback.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so we opened the exhibit. It was actually our last exhibit at Presentation House, our old home, in 2017. And from there, I was really fortunate to be able to take it myself and install it at the Umista Cultural Center, which is located in Alert Bay. It was a very moving experience. They had just finished and were reopening some of their galleries. And one of the stories that they were telling in their own galleries was about the residential school that had been in Alert Bay. So it was a very complimentary exhibit at that time. And from Umista Cultural Center, it has been in the Sydney Museum on Vancouver Island. Then it went to, actually it was at a high school, which was really, really special. It was exhibited at the RE Mountain High School in Langley. And they had over 1,000 school children, different ages, to be able to visit at the time that they had it there, and were able to do a lot of programming with the schools. And I thought that was just amazing, because that was the other thing. We wanted to design an exhibit that could be exhibited outside of museums or galleries, to really have opportunities to reach people that don't go to museums, that might not be where they would experience something like this. And then before I came to the Wildbird Trust, it was exhibited at the Alberni Valley Museum in Port Alberni. So it's had a nice little run so far, and I'm very excited and I hope that it has life for many, many years. And we were really fortunate too with the museum. We produced some really great online educational components and programming that are available, as well as kits that we loan out to schools. So it's really had a really extensive life so far, and I'm just pleased to see it everywhere. We've had amazing feedback, but I think actually the most poignant feedback I ever got was when we had a school program in North Vancouver, when it was at the Presentation House, and there were some children in the classes that were actually related to Chief Dan George, great-great-grandchildren, and they told their teacher that they felt so special because they could talk about their family and their culture with their classmates. They were the experts. They were the ones that could help tell that story. And I think for me, that was one of the greatest comments and feedback that I could imagine. And I just really hope that it has a great life at the Wildbird Trust, and hopefully many more people will want to see it in different places.
This is a really good feeling having the exhibit so close to home, and as many stories and songs and traditions that can carry on and pass down to children. And just recently, my granddaughter, we brought her down here, and she was looking at all the pictures, and we've told her that he's been on TV and he had a dance group, and grandma and grandpa traveled her grandma around. That after she finished looking at the pictures and realized, was great Papa Dan famous? And we're like, yeah, he was on movies. And she kind of hippity hopped and skipped around. And just those good feelings of making those connections of what's been put out there in the universe and on TV and film, and being able to sing those songs and come here and drum and sing those exact songs makes it feel like it's a little bit of a full circle feeling.
We're really grateful to be able to do the complimentary program so that your family members can enjoy this all summer long. I want to thank both of you for answering a few of my questions. I think we're going to have Karen. Karen, thanks for your work and giving the context, the bigger context as well. And Shar, I believe Ta'a is there. What we can do is we can watch the Lament for Confederation, and I'll play that now while we make the space ready for Amy George. And so with some success, we'll have the Zoom will play the Lament for Confederation, and I'm going to ask Ta'a some questions about this, because there is some story inside the story, as there always are, about how this lament was created and the video that was made for it. So here is the Lament for Confederation from 1971. And as I feared, we're going to hopefully try that again. All right, the gremlins are in the system. So let's go directly to Ta'a if she's in the space. We also have some additional video I can also show. Let's go to as we heard, the Lament for Confederation happened in 1971, and actually CBC wanted to document the lament, and so Dan went the following day to CBC and re-recorded it, and we actually that's the video we have. And I'm really excited that on July the 25th we're going to be having we're going to have Ta'a reading the lament, performing the lament for you on July the 24th, July 24th. So certainly welcome everybody to put that in their calendars. And I believe we have an Eventbrite link that Rachel can put in the chat. So if you're interested in RSVPing for that today, you can do that. And Rachel will have the chat link for you. But let's play now some other video from the museum.
How long have I known you, Canada? 100 years? Yes, 100 years, and many, many years more. And today, when you celebrate your 100 years, O Canada, I am sad for all the Indian people throughout the land. For I have known you when your forests were mine.
My old Antoine, you're too old to cry about things like this. Not very long before you have to go to the Tsakalielahi, old Antoine.
Yes, I know I got to die sometime. But I've been an old man a long time. Martin, he don't ever get old. Not right, Martin gets killed.
Dear old Antoine. Foolish old man. Ready, Nora?
When they gave me my meat and my clothes, I have known you in your brooks and rivers, where your fish flashed and danced in the sun, and whose waters said, "Come and eat of my abundance." I have known you in the freedom of your winds, and my spirit, like your winds, once roamed this good land. But in the last 100 years since the white man came, I've seen that freedom disappear, just like the salmon when they mysteriously go out to sea. The white man's strange customs I could not understand.
A spokesman for the Indian cause, Dan is determined to change the stereotyped movie image of his people. But Dan George has spent most of his 71 years as a logger and a longshoreman. In 1947, an injury ended 26 years on the docks. Today, Dan still lives in a plain white house on the reserve near Vancouver. Just recently, he lost his wife, Amy, to whom he'd been married for over half a century. His children, including actor son Len, live nearby. In that plain white house, the phone rings constantly, bringing offers from New York agents and Hollywood producers, people who want him to pose for pictures, open exhibitions, and endorse products. The chief, though, remains calm through it all.
My nation was ignored in your history textbooks. We were less important in the history of Canada than the buffalo dream. Come out and fight! It is a good day to die! Thank you for making me a human being. Thank you for helping me to become a warrior. Thank you for my victories and for my defeat. Thank you for my vision and the blindness in which I saw further. Oh, Canada, how can I celebrate with you this centenary, this 100 years? Shall I thank you for the reserves that are left me of my beautiful forest? Shall I thank you for the canned fish of my rivers? Shall I thank you for the loss of my pride and authority? Friend, just as the chief, I'm retired.
And there we go. The
You're on.
This is just a little bit of work from the exhibition that you can see, and I welcome folks to come down, and you can see the full video that I just put a little clip of, and it chronicles some of the things that we talked about with Karen and Charlene Alec about his legacy, about that journey. We're really thrilled to be joined by Ta'a Amy George. Amy, thank you for coming down to the Nature House on your lands here and sharing a bit of time with us. And we just heard Dan's voice, your father's voice. It's a voice that we're familiar with from the movies, but of course, it's entirely different for you. It's your papa. So it's, can you just share your reflections today? Being in the space, being surrounded by your dad and your family's story and your family's legacy?
My dad studied at Lament for Canada. They phoned and said each nationality is going to be putting a part in the celebration at the stadium. And we'd like your input and see what you might add to it. He used to stay quiet for sometimes hours. It's almost like meditation, and you'd be thinking what exactly he needs to say and what he needs to put out for some understanding and a little bit of unity between the races. Once he got it, he had it forever in his head. When it came the night, and as his children, we stood behind him and sang there was so much feeling involved in that lament that a song, every person has a song in them, and that song came out. And he said, I want you, when I say this lament, I want you to stand behind me and I want you to sing it. So that's how that song, which is the anthem for Coast Salish people, is his feelings around the lament for Canada. And we stood behind him and sang it. And that year, I think it was a year that John Kennedy got shot, that Martin Luther King got shot. And he said those words. And at the end of it, the place was absolutely quiet. It seemed to be about 30 seconds. And then a big uproar, they just stood up and just clapped and clapped. But when we were walking off the field, there were some guys throwing those takeout cartons for pop. They were throwing it at us, and they said to my dad, "You're nuts." And some of them were so angry, but the people just stood and clapped and clapped and clapped. The majority, in the few that hated it were throwing things at us. And I said to my brother Bob, I said, I never saw Daddy looking so small. And my brother said, I felt the opposite. I'd never seen him look so big. He stood and said those words in front of that whole stadium. I traveled with him and a band called Fireweed way back in the day. And we did a tour through BC, so I heard him saying it like nightly. Even if just a few people, some of those towns were like a two-home town, and just a few people would show up, but he'd do it anyway. And they said, you don't have to do it tonight, Chief. And he said, well, they showed up and I'm going to do it. Near reserves, towns near reserves, the face would be packed in Prince Rupert. He just stepped out of the stage and there was a big thunderous applause for about 3 minutes. And he did that lament. At one big field, I'm not sure, I think it's Lillooet. He was at the mic and he was going to do the lament for Confederation. And he said to the people, move up, move up. So the natives all moved up and they made a circle around him. And he started to say the lament, and the way they were looking at him, he got through the last few words and then he fainted. He just fell over and he fainted on the field. And just like that, about 3 or 4 big men come running and picked him up. And my mom was screaming, she's like, Dan, what's the matter? And they packed him to his car and laid him down and got cold water. And he came to, and my mom said, Dan, what happened? And he said, it's the looks on the faces of my people. I couldn't take it. And he doesn't remember fainting at all. At times, it was a little different from what was written, and I'm lucky to have the full copy of exactly how it said it on that night of Canada's birthday. And I was lucky enough to do it at the Queen Elizabeth Theatre on the 50th year. I'm the last one here. My brothers and sisters, my parents, my husband, I'm here on my own right now. I'm so happy. I have my children and grandchildren here with me, and being so lonesome for them. I can feel my dad's presence in here. I can see him on the screen. I can watch him in the movie. I watched Josie Wells the other night, and I just enjoyed it like the first time I saw it. He's got some really good lines in there. And Clint Eastwood said to him, you know, Chief, we go good together. You want to do another movie? My dad said, sure, we'll do another movie. But by then he was having bad stomach cancer. We call this North America Turtle Island. This is what we called it. We named it. This is our turtle, Finland. Well, the chiefs across Turtle Island wanted to name him the Grand National Chief of Turtle Island. And by time it began its planning, stomach cancer was too bad. So that never got done. But I feel happy that they considered it, that they might have named him the Grand Chief of Turtle Island. Yes, it was my brother Bob who got onto Caribou Country on a part. He played Napoleon something. I was on that too. I also made 2 movies, but I just say on the screen back there that Leonard been in the movie, and I did Death Hunt with that Lee Marvin and Charlie Bronson back in the day in a Charlton Heston movie. And I've been an extra in many of Dad's TV and movie shows. I just like to say that I could feel his presence here today. Yes. If I was troubled in any way, or if I was feeling bad, I would just sit by him, and he was so peaceful that I'd feel it melting away. And I've been up and down emotionally. So I'm a residential school survivor, and those 215 bodies that were in a mass grave it's just like an emotional storm and turmoil. And to be here in his presence with all the things, all these pictures of him and watching him, I get the same feeling when I sat beside him when he was still in this world, and I'd sit beside him and feel so much better. I appreciate this display. I'm grateful for it. Thank you.
Thank you, Amy. Yeah, thank you for sharing your father with us. And thank you for being with us today. There's a lot of grief. There's a lot of grief at this time. And your father inspired both, to your point, that Indigenous people across Turtle Island, and to your point, it would have been a great honor, and it is a great honor, the fact that they knew that he had such an impact across Turtle Island that they were going to propose to have him as the Grand Chief. And for us here in your traditional lands, the Tsleil-Waututh, it's just a great honor that we get to do this work, knowing that he challenged us with love and with truth 50 years ago, and we can still do that work today. And so I just want to thank you for sharing your time today, and I'm really excited and really grateful that you'll be able to share time with us on July the 25th, and we'll be outside in the trees for
It's
our
not July 25th, it's the 24th.
July 24th. Sorry, yes,
That's his birthday.
that's correct. Yes, and I also I think I mixed up my numbers from 1967 and 1971 as well, so I'm a bit mixed up today. But we're really thrilled that you'll be with us for that work again that you did at the Queen Elizabeth Theatre for the 50th anniversary of the Lament, and we'll be able to do that outside. And so Dr. Bonnie Henry, maybe we can even invite her there, and we'll be outside under the trees, and we'll be able to see you in person. And that's just about 6 weeks from now. So I want to thank you for being with us today, and invite everybody to join us again on July the 24th for our Osprey Festival for Chief Dan George's birthday. And is Andrea in the space as well?
Yeah.
It'd be great to we have if Andrea could share a comment, and we also have Rachel George, who will close up with a poem, reading Dan George's poetry. So, and in the meantime, I'll also share some of the programs that we're running. Tśētsawanexw on June 17th, connecting the plant knowledge with the exhibition. So I'm looking forward to that. That's on June 17th. And all of this type of information for all of the programs related to the exhibition are on our website and our social media channels at Maplewood Flats. Rachel George is our artist in residence this summer. And I believe Rachel is also working with Lee Miracle, another grandchild from Dan George. So Lee Miracle, an esteemed writer, will be with us this summer. And of course, our Osprey Festival, Chief Dan George's 122nd birthday on July the 24th, with Murray Porter, Sandy Schofield, Trevor Carolyn, and members of the George family. So all that and more with the program. And thank you for joining us, Andrea. And it's great that you've come down to the Nature House and sharing both your family's stories, but also your grandfather's work with us. And so we're really humbled and appreciative of your whole family sharing him with us as North Vancouverites, as people living and growing up on your unceded lands. So thank you for joining us. Just if you can share some thoughts about being in the space and being surrounded by, as Ta says, the feeling of your grandfather.
Thank you, Erwin, ACMCI, and Pastor here. Just recognizing and welcoming our honored guests, relatives, elders, friends, and family. My ancestral name is Sylvia, and Andrea, I'm the granddaughter of Chief Dan George. I just really wanted to acknowledge our nephews who came down to open us up in a really good way. You know, words can't express the power and the beauty that opened us up in that really powerful way. The minute that the drums and the songs were sang, the strength and the power that came through, you could really feel in this space and time. It's powerful, and really bringing our grandfather and my aunt's father to the very forefront, and being with us today and sitting with us and being with us is truly magnificent. And so I just really would like to raise my hands as well to the individuals who already put this forward together for us, so we can continue the ongoing legacy and sharing our grandfather's life and educating individuals. And I think it just really speaks to the powers of beyond when we look at deciding the dates and when this exhibition was going to happen here at the Nature House. You know, it is intentional and unintentional all at the same time that this exhibit is happening, and was planned before the discovery of the 215 angels, and really brought us back to why we are at this place and moment in time today, to continue to fight for our rights as Indigenous people, and for the betterment and treatment of ourselves, our ancestors, and our children and our future generations, and to really have this moment in time to really reflect what's really important. And I think, you know, looking back at my experiences, my family, my brothers and sisters had the really great fortune of having our grandfather live with us in our home in St. Mary's. We lived at St. Mary's, this is right beside the residential school, for the entirety of our life. And being raised in that atmosphere is really a blessing, because you had my grandfather who had the eyes of the world on him, and to be that really strong, instrumental individual who brought the Indigenous people's voices to the forefront in Turtle Island. And, you know, to be at the same time living beside a residential school, and to grow up in the home where you know, had the teachings instilled upon you to care for your elders in your home. And my grandfather lived with many of his children. He would take turns going from his children's homes to be cared for, and having the opportunity to spread that love and those teachings amongst all of his grandchildren is truly a blessing. And with that, you know, we grow up with those values instilled in us, and to really value those relationships is really what shapes who we are today. And very grateful that we were brought up that way. And it is no different than the way that we grew up hundreds of years ago in our longhouses, living in a communal situation together as one. Excuse me, together as one. The only difference was to be in a modern home. And excuse me. And having said that, you know, watching my mother and my father care for my grandfather with those traditional values and teaching really instilled that in the rest of us. And I think the Western world, the Western word for that now is nursing. And watching my mother and my father care for him is really what inspired me to make my career choice, to be in the healthcare field and nursing, and to carry that tradition on in our community today, caring for all of our people, our elders. And that's the ongoing continued legacy of our grandfather. You know, we really want to ensure that this exhibit keeps going and providing that opportunity to share these teachings and values with all individuals. And I think I would just really always like to encourage people to be mindful of your footprint as we walk on this earth together, and to continue to care for our environment, and be really respectful all of us, and particularly, the stewards of the land, us as Indigenous people. We've set out a fantastic roadmap of modeling on how and what that's supposed to look like for all of us. And looking at my grandfather, having all the Indigenous eyes of the world on you, to be that voice is a tremendous responsibility, and to carry that off with so much dignity, grace, integrity, and love is astounding to me. And so I would just like to close out with this last thought of, as we go together forward in our journey, walking together forward, to ask yourselves, what legacy are you leaving behind? Is it one of opposition or one of collaboration and as an ally? So with that, I just like to leave that message.
Thank you so much, Andrea. Important words, both to hear it from a family member, but also in your role at managing health for the Tsleil-Waututh, and also as a neighbor, challenging us to really deal with this issue of our footprint. And I think it's genocide. The coin of genocide has two sides. One is the function of genocide, and the other one is settler denial that enables genocide. And so I think your challenge to us to be mindful of our footprint and to question what is our legacy, and to invest in making sure that our legacy is the right one is poignant, and I really appreciate you taking the time to share those words with us today. Thank you, Andrea.
Thank you.
I want to invite Rachel George to close us out today. We started with Rob and Nick and their welcome song, and it'd be lovely to hear a great granddaughter of Chief Dan George reading a there you are, Rachel, reading from your great grandfather. It seems to be an appropriate way to end this, and thank you for sharing time with us. So you're also the artist in residence with us at Maplewood Flats, so I want to acknowledge that and invite folks to a talk that you're giving on June the 24th. So that's another chance to have more time with you. So because we don't have a lot of time today, but this is a chance to have more time with you. So without any further ado, Rachel, over to you.
Hi, thank you, Erwin. Thanks for the introduction. That was great. This day has been so beautiful so far, from the start of this event until now, and I just want to acknowledge everyone who has contributed to this day, and I've just been like sitting and enjoying and watching, and thank you for all the words and the land acknowledgements, and also acknowledging the children from Kamloops. It's just been such a sad time, and also the other children that were found, I think in Manitoba, I just saw that like yesterday, but it might have happened a few days ago, I'm not really sure. But yeah, just acknowledging these times, and like it's really good to do events like this because we can lift each other up, and acknowledging it and working through it together is just like really good healing medicine. And yeah, I'm just really excited for this exhibit, and it warms my heart to know that we're doing an event dedicated to Chief Dan George. And yeah, I'm really honored to be here today to read some poetry from his. I'm going to read a poem from My Spirit Soars.
Hi.
Oh, hi.
How you doing?
Good. Hi.
Go ahead, Rachel.
Okay, I'm gonna start by reading My Face is the Land. My face is the land. Many seasons ago, my arms were strong, my spine straight, my legs had swiftness, and my eyes were as good as hawks. People would look at my face, and they saw it and it was the face of a nameless Indian. Few people called me brother. It was my face that kept them from wanting to know me better because it was the face of an Indian. Yet already then, my face was well known. It was known to the squirrel that heard a twig break under my foot while I walked into the woods. It was known to the porcupine that sat in the treetop and watched me pass underneath. It was known to the raven who cawed to the creatures to tell them of my coming. It was known to the fox who stole my food and to the beaver who watched me set traps. It was known to the bear whose den and my house were in the same forest. It was known to the heron who taught me patience in the quest for food. It was known to the warbler whose song filled my heart with joy. It was known to the wind that brought me messages from the creatures and the plants. It was known to the rain that feeds the spring where I quenched my thirst day after day. It was known to the lakes whose waters blended with the sky who speaks to all of freedom. The trees also knew my face. I was told by my father that someday, when the skin of my face takes on the furrows of pine bark, my spirit will leave my body and seek a new home in a tree. But like the wolf that soon will be gone from here, my face is the vanishing kind. You see, what is in the wilderness is in my face, and what is in my face is in the wilderness. My face is the land. If you misunderstand one, you will neglect the other. If you harm one, you scar the other. If you despise one, you will disgrace the other. If you shame one, you will cause the other to weep. If you look at one and cannot call its name, you will never know the other. But how can you not know my face? How can you not know the land? Is it not all around you? Is it not part of all you do and live for? Is it not within your heart where the yearning for brotherhood takes its beginning? Are we not all living in times of enlightenment when one should have a nameless face any longer? Not even an Indian. Now that my hair has the color of moonlight and my voice sounds like gentle winds blowing on dry leaves, my face is known everywhere because of the magic of films. People point at me and say with admiration, Chief Dan George. But how many of my brothers still have nameless faces because they are Indians? As I once did before you knew me as Chief Dan George.
Powerful, Rachel. Thank you so much for helping us close this event so powerfully. And I think the choice that you've made of those words also kind of aptly brings all of the messages we've heard together. So thank you for that. And I want to thank you for your time and joining us, and all your family members. And I want to thank all of our guests for joining us today as well. And I hope you have a great day further. Do come to the show Thursday, Fridays, Saturdays, and Sundays. And there's a link in the chat regarding the bubble times you can book. Otherwise, it's first come, first serve. And also in the chat is a link to joining the Wild Bird Trust of BC. And that gives you a chance to receive our Wingspan magazine in the mail. And that's just about to go out. And Wingspan is a great way to stay in touch with all of our work and all of our programming. So if you're missing any of the details from today's program, they will be detailed in the next issue of Wingspan, which we will mail to you. So it's a great opportunity to have that in the mail, and that's through joining the Wild Bird Trust of BC. And this is a preview of the next issue of Wingspan that's just ready to be mailed out. So do join us, and you'll receive that in the mail. And just pass it over to my co-hosts to say a final farewell. Andrea and Amy and Charlene, Alec, thank you so much for all of your work today.
Thank you, Erwin. Thank you, Leanne, and behind the scenes, Rachel and Nicole for helping us out and making sure that we're all plugged in. Thank you to my sister and Ta'a for being here.
Thank you for watching. Thank you for your ears for hearing us.
Thanking you all for joining us and lending us your ears and listening with open hearts today and witnessing the continued legacy of our grandfather.
And do come back. There's some fireside chats with family members. So do check the website and do come back. Join the Facebook page.
Thank you so much to all of you, and thank you for joining. And it's a beautiful sunny day, so let's get outside and continue this beautiful experience with the sunshine on our faces. So thank you, everybody.
Great.